Welcome to From the Magic Pencil, Voices of Writing Through. Our goal is to amplify the voices of people whose stories need to be heard. Really happy to introduce my friend, Jason Barron. I've known him for a while. We actually went to university together, although we didn't know each other at university. Jason has founded this fabulous organization called the Chelly Foundation. And they work in a very small and rural community in Cambodia. And I'm really looking forward to hearing his thoughts about Cambodia and education there and learning more about the Chelly Foundation as well. Okay, maybe you could talk a little bit about how we met and where you live now and who you are.
So I'm Jason Barron, and I live in Bethesda, Maryland, but I grew up in New England. You know how I came in contact with Writing Through, Sue? I don't know whether you remember this, but I typed 2 words into LinkedIn. I typed Wesleyan and Cambodia, and up you came.
But you don't work in Cambodia, right? What has your career been?
I've spent 40 years as a lawyer in Washington, D.C. Perhaps I can explain how the Chelly Foundation came to be. Sometime back, about 9 years ago, a woman named Nan Knopp started assisting my mother, who was in an institutional facility here in the DC area. My mother had MS, and Nan was extraordinary in her services to my mom. And when my mother passed away in 2012, I felt a need to do something for Nan. Her backstory is amazing. She lived through the Khmer Rouge era. She was walking one day to school with a young friend, and it was elementary school, and the friend was blown up by a mine, and Nan had shrapnel. She's lived a life of being in a very poor community. Anyway, with that backstory and with her extraordinary care of my mom, I wanted to do something. And so we decided we would build a library in her village, a library for children at the high school. It's the first freestanding library at a public high school in Kampot province.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in Kampot, for people who don't know the geography of Cambodia, is south of Phnom Penh. You have a little city there, but it's really very, very rural, isn't it? It's really kind of remote.
The area around Kampot is rural and remote, and the Chumkuri district is a very poor place. The people who live in the village that Nan grew up in, life is difficult. It is subsistence living with rice farming. The children grow up without necessarily enough to eat in terms of breakfast in the morning, and there's no running water in the village or electricity in the village or surrounding hamlets. And it's it's an experience that few of us that have grown up in the United States in relative privilege, have as their life experience. And so when I went there, I was overwhelmed by the warmth and generosity of the children and the people in the village. There were almost 1,000 kids from the high school who came to the dedication, the Chelly Library, named after my mom. And so I walked away from that experience saying, I got to do more. The library is good, but in terms of people's lives, children's lives, we can do more. And so I've kind of dedicated myself, as you have, Sue, doing whatever I can for children in that village. The high school that I built the library in didn't have bathrooms for students, and the area schools don't. And so we built those kind of facilities in 3 schools. We've given away dozens and dozens of bicycles to kids who walk up to 10 kilometers each way. And we do field trips, we do other kinds of activities, school supplies, all sorts of things. The thing that I'm really proud of is that high school students who have learned English well and have done very well on the 12th grade exam for Cambodia, we sponsor, and we've sponsored 25 kids so far, 22 of them young women, to go on full ride scholarships to universities in Phnom Penh. And that's kind of amazing for girls who really would either stay on the family rice farm or go work in a factory.
One of the things that I love about the Chelly Foundation too is that you don't just stay in the village and do a little bit of education there. I mean, you really support the children kind of in their whole family lives. You follow them as they move out of the village into the university. You give them emotional support as well as financial support and educational support while they are in university, because I know I have seen, and you certainly know, how difficult it is. It's one thing to get educated enough so that you could get yourself accepted into a university in Phnom Penh, but then it's another thing to move from a tiny little village in the middle of nowhere, away from your family, to the big crazy city.
You're right. And we care about our students. And we, of course, we care about the children in the village too. I would like, when I was surrounded by hundreds and hundreds of children, I'd like to give scholarships to all of them. But of course, that's really not doable to scale like that. So we're doing some. I can tell you that the principals of the schools in the village of Sneanshi and surrounding hamlets in Chumkuri attribute to the Chelly Foundation something that's really quite remarkable. When we started, only about 50% of 12th graders passed the national exam. And due to the library and due to incentivizing children that they could get a scholarship, the pass rate is now 80%.
The Khmer Rouge, of course, killed everyone who had any education. They were looking to develop an agrarian society. And so there was no school, there were no teachers, and people grew up being afraid of education. Why should their children go to school? We need them to work the fields. But seeing what they can accomplish, and you're helping to show that, I would think is really having an impact far beyond the individual students that you're helping.
You know, there's a long legacy of the Khmer Rouge that continues to this day because Cambodia just doesn't have infrastructure, doesn't have the kind of entrepreneurship that other Southeast Asia countries have been able to have. And, you know, Nan tells the story of a sister of hers who tried to read under like a candlelight in the era of the Khmer Rouge, but was worried that there was kind of these roving gangs of individuals who would find students who are actually reading a book and then terrorize them. Things are better in some sense, but it is a very poor existence for many of the students. And the great thing about writing through, if I want to move to that, is that you are doing exactly what students need.
As you know, the public schools are half days. Even now, you want to go to school for half a day.
What I really love about your program is that the requirement that the push to have students stand up at the end and demonstrate that they, and read their poems, their stories. And that is something that isn't emphasized in the schools at all, to my knowledge. And I think it's great.
Yeah, we like to think of it as frightening them. Let's get them really scared, but not so scared that they're paralyzed, And then once they get up and do the scary thing and say, oh, I could do this, then they know that there are other scary things that they could do, like going to the big city and going to university. Yeah, I'd love to hear you talk about, I know that you've had some amazing success with a couple of your young women students. And of course, it's the girls, the smart girls, who are the first to get pulled out of school.
Well, I'm proud of all of the young women that we've selected, because in the vast majority of cases to date, they all have worked really hard. 8 have graduated with 4-year degrees. They're in offices, in banks, in accounting, in the hotel industry. One is had a chemistry degree and is working in a pharmaceutical company and is just wonderful. But so all of them I'm really proud of. And one's a 5th grade teacher, and she's great. There's a remarkable story, and it partially involves writing through, because I made an effort in my last trip to Cambodia to try to get an organization called the Harpswell Foundation, which is kind of a leadership academy during college or university years, to interview students from our high school to have them come to the program. Harpswell takes only 20 young people, 20 young women a year from all of Cambodia. There are hundreds and hundreds of people who interview with Harpswell. And we had a young woman named Jaria, who 2 years ago was picked. And then we had a second young woman, Rena. And Rena, I am really happy to say, credits Writing Through for her English being better and her confidence being better. Harpswell only picks people who can speak English and young people who demonstrate some proficiency in English and the potential for some leadership skills. And so to think that somebody holding up one of those Writing Through certificates like a year later has been picked as the second Chelly scholar to be at Harpswell is absolutely amazing. What's even more amazing is that Jaria and Rita were literally next door neighbors in their houses in Chumkri. And I don't think that's ever happened before in Harpswell. They draw students from all over. This leadership program, they go to school, university, and then they all reside together. They have the opportunity to meet people from all over the world and to experience, what everyone would want. It was a rich experience, all sorts of activities aimed at giving them the confidence and leadership skills to make something of themselves in society. And many students at Harpswell have gone on to other countries to have graduate degrees. They come back to Cambodia and they participate in all sorts of ways. And so to think of 2 of our 25 young people coming out of Chumkri, I mean, this just gives me a lot of joy. And one of them credits you, Sue.
Well, it's thrilling to me to think that, our program has been able to help her and to be a part of this incredible trajectory that her life has taken. It's just an amazing story, and it's amazing work that you do. I'd love it if you could read a poem from one of your students. Could you do that for us?
I thought you'd never ask. Yes. So the second workshop that you conducted, there was a girl named Malika, and she wrote a poem called In the Dry Season. It's a short poem. I'll just read it here. Okay. In my village, all the farmers are so worried about their rice fields because the weather is rather hot. And also there is no water in the fields. I want to help them, but I cannot. So all students don't want to be farmers, including me. I don't want to meet events as them because it is rather difficult. So I should study hard and get a good job for my life. That poem encapsulates the challenge of students in the area. Virtually all of these students are going to struggle. Global warming, we have been importing rice to poor families. 2 of our students went around to 15 poor families and gave them food supplies. There is a problem with hot weather where there isn't as much rain that comes in the rainy season. Now, the students don't want to all work on family farms. There needs to be at least the opportunity for many of them to find jobs somewhere and help their families. All of our scholarship students do that with part-time jobs. COVID has been a challenge. Some of them have lost their jobs, but they'll have jobs again. And I just think this poem is sort of for Malika, she sort of has just summarized the challenge.
Now that Writing Through is, of course, continuing in Cambodia and in other places in Southeast Asia, but starting to focus as well on the US, I would be interested to hear what you think it might be like for us to be working here, and you who raised your own daughter in the US, what your thoughts might be about how Writing Through can work in the US.
Well, there's inequality in the US, just like there's tremendous inequality around the world. And I would think that your program would be a beautiful addition, just would be great, maybe as an after-school program or, during the hours if a school will allow you to get students engaged. There are lots of students who, for various reasons in this country, are just do not focus as well as they should on success in school. And a program like yours would be perfect.
Everyone should have their magic pencil. I should send you a magic pencil. Your students have the magic pencils, but I don't think that you have one.
I don't, so please do.
I will.
I'm kind of amazed by many of the students. Some of the students write these beautiful letters. I just love it that they're, they can tell stories. And Rita did be part of Writing Through, is one of them. And there are others. And I would hope that, their skills only improve.
Yeah. And they don't allow their backgrounds to stand in their way, which in itself takes a lot of bravery. So the way that we work together, Chelly is an important partner. And we always talk in Writing Through about the organizations we work with. They're our partners. And those partnerships, the partnership with Chelly it feels very much like that. That, you are doing what you're doing, and we come in and we add a little bit of something to what you're doing. And together we lift these students up. A big thank you to Jason for taking the time to talk to me. If you would like to find out more about the Chelly Foundation and what they do, you can check out their website at thechellyfoundation.org. Chelly is spelled Chelly, or check our show notes for the link. Please join us again next week when I'll be joined by Patty Beerley, another long-term Writing Through volunteer. We can discuss all sorts of things, including how she got involved with Writing Through, her experience living as an expat in Singapore, and her career as a trainer. Here's a short clip.
But also, I think the personal challenge of taking yourself out of something that is very comfortable and then throwing yourself into something where you really have to dig deep and learn something new, I think is a great growth experience. And trust me, Singapore is easy. It's not like I was being dropped into the middle of a desert somewhere and had to figure it out.
We really hope you are enjoying this podcast. We have lots more to come, so don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you can please rate and leave a review for us, that would really help our fledgling podcast reach a wider audience. Also, a personal recommendation can be great to bring in new listeners. Thank you for listening. See you next week. From the Magic Pencil is a collaborative product of the staff and volunteers of Writing Through, including founder and executive director Sue Guiney and deputy director Kristen Schuster. It is edited and produced by our operations coordinator, B. Rice. We would like to give special thanks to our interns, Rachel Walkman and Eva Phelps, without whom these podcasts would not have been possible. If you are interested in donating, volunteering, or partnering with Writing Through, or just finding out a little bit more about what we do, you can check out our website at www.writingthrough.org. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn, or email us at info@writingthrough.org. Until next time, thank you so much for listening. Ever onward.